Testing, 1, 2, 3. This will be the July 20th City Council meeting. Testing.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order a regular City Council meeting of the City of Satellite Beach, July 20th, 2016, approximately 7 p.m. Please join Councilman Montanaro for a short prayer and the pledge.
Lord, thank you for allowing us to be here this evening to make decisions for our city. Please guide us. Pray for our men and women who are stationed around the world serving in our military, that they come home safe. And please watch over our law enforcement with the things that have been going on in our country and around the world. In your name we pray, amen. If you'll join me in a pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Issue here. Okay. Let me. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to give a recognition, to somebody who worked.
Mayor.
Sorry. Never get by this. Okay. Recognition to someone who spent a lot of time in a very important position in our city for a number of years, who very dedicated to our city in that position, and she can no longer serve because she got a great promotion. She is now the General Magistrate for the 18th Judicial Circuit. So, Leslie Staldy, will you please come up and let me... Leslie Staldy, with deep appreciation for your service as Chair of the Board of Adjustments, October 6, 2006 to May 23rd, 2016. 10 years. Incredible. For consistently providing with professionalism and fairness to all residents and representing the best interest of our city. Presented with best wishes from our City Council, staff, and residents, July 20th, 2016. Leslie, thank you so very, very much for all you did for us. I know we're going to miss you on that board. The board members who have served on that board, nothing but praise on how professionally you did it, and thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thank you everybody here for being here, Suzanne. And I just wanted to say that it's been an honor to serve on the Board of Adjustments in this wonderful city. I have loved doing it. I really miss it already. I wish I didn't have to give it up. But honestly, that board and the board members on that board, current and past, are amazing people. I couldn't have done it without them. They were very dedicated, they're respectful, they're conscientious, they take it really seriously. It makes me very proud and happy to have people like this volunteering in our city. So again, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is a great one. Now, the best part of this one...
Mayor.
Italians can't talk without moving their hands. Sorry. This next one's really great for us. Really what I want to know from Marjorie is this. Was Chief Pearson really a pain in the neck on the school bus?
Was Chief Pearson really a pain in the neck on the school bus? I'll say he was one.
You can say yes. Thanks. That's what I thought.
Because he is now.
Yeah. So this is a proclamation to Marjorie Alderson for a very special day. And she's a very special lady in our community, and we'd like to recognize her. Whereas Marjorie Alderson was born in Ohio on June 22nd, 1926, and has proudly called our Satellite Beach community home since 1961. Whereas Margie was blessed with 4 children who were raised in Satellite Beach, 2 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Whereas Marjorie always had a passion for keeping our children safe while she drove them to and from school for 23 years as a Brevard County school bus driver, serving the city of Satellite Beach area and putting up with Chief Pearson. Model student. Whereas Marjorie also took care of our children for 5 years as a Satellite Beach crossing guard, and during this time, she taught them to always look left, right, left before crossing the street, and to make sure their bicycle helmets were secured properly as she moved them safely across the street. And where Margie, after retirement, now volunteered for Meals on Wheels to make sure our resident shut-ins had a good meal and were doing well. Whereas the city of Satellite Beach, along with friends, family, and friends, would like to congratulate Margie on her 90th birthday milestone. Now, therefore, I, Frank P. Catino, Mayor of the city of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, do hereby celebrate Margie Alderson's 90th birthday day. So, Margie, congratulations. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5 is citizens' comments. This is for non-agenda items. So non-agenda items. The floor is open. John.
Don McClendon, citizen. I just want to thank City Manager Courtney and the Assistant City Manager and the HR Director for their help and helping me to understand a few issues and compile some information. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Still open for citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Okay, hearing none further, bring it back to council. City council comments. Who would like, Don?
I would just like to say that today I went out with members of Sampson Island. They go out regularly, I think on Wednesdays, like a work party, and go out there and tear down the pepper trees and the carrot wood. And I went out there this morning. It was a little warm, but they do great work out there. Great work out there. The place looks great out there, and they really appreciate our volunteers that go out there and take time to go out there and do that. So it was a good experience today. I really had a good time with it. That's all.
Thank you. Mark? I have nothing, sir. Thank you.
I have nothing.
And I'm going to have nothing because I know we have a long agenda, and I'm sure we're going to be discussing a lot here. Moving on to item 7, City Manager's Report. Courtney?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to remind everyone that the Raj S. Shah Memorial Blood Drive will be Saturday, August 13th, and that will be at the First Wave Financial Building, which is at 1300 Highway A1A. That will be held from 8:30 to 4:30. It's a great time to go give blood because you literally really a lot of times don't have to wait. So because you can just go at any time between 8:30 and 4:30. They have a lot of snacks for us, and this is Joanne Regan, one of our residents, and this is held in the memory of her late husband. So if you want any more information, the phone number and email is in my report. I have received a thank you response for our Public Works Department, which is in your packet. And I also received an email thanking the fire department for their quick response to a resident. I received another thank you email regarding the fire department and their service interaction with one of our residents, and that was particularly with regard to our community paramedic program. As an update to your invasive tree ordinance, we are pretty much done with that program. We have reimbursed a total of 11 properties for a total of $14,130. And there are 3 properties left in the city that still need to come into compliance. However, all 3 of them are in some level of compliance. So they're working with the building department and getting that done. So we believe that we will achieve 100% compliance within 60 days. And because of the program and type of ordinance that you implemented, we did not need to use the formal code enforcement process at all during that period of time. So we feel like it was a very successful way to achieve that goal. Chief, I wanted to invite him to come up and say a few words about some of the gifts and thank yous that we've received over the last couple weeks.
Excuse us, I have a very hungry general magistrate.
There you go. Thank you. No problem at all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Order the lobster. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I wanted to make a formal thank you to the citizens for all the outpouring of support that we received in the wake of the things that are going on in this country and the police officers that are being ambushed and attacked. And it's just an incredible sight to see parents walking in with their children who have had handwritten notes, drawing us cards. They're bringing in like snacks and cookies. Probably the most impressive part, though, are the people that just walk in the door to say, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate what you do and to thank you for being here and for thank you for what you do. And it's hard to really express that, how much that means to you. But I hear the folks talking about it around the water cooler. I hear them talking about it on the road. And it's those kind of things that help you get through when you've got these difficult times. I think we all understand that it takes a community. And when you see that, it's just very heartwarming. And the things that they bring in are great. They even bring in what the civilians call donuts. Well, we call them power rings, so we get by with that. And that's all. I just want to take a couple minutes to formally thank the community and all of the people and the citizens. Our city manager and our city council and mayor have been very supportive, as always. I've gotten emails and phone calls and sentiments from all of them, as well as staff, and it's just outstanding. I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I do have a couple action items for you this evening. Sea Villa Condo, the condominium, they're located at 1425 State Road A1A, which is very close to Pelican Beach Park. They are requesting the temporary use of approximately 10 parking spaces at Pelican Beach Park in the evening and nighttime hours to accommodate a construction project at their facility. We didn't see any problem with this. However, we do have a policy that we do not allow overnight parking at those areas. So we wanted to make sure that we get your approval of that before we just indiscriminately waive that policy.
Motion? Do we need a motion? Can we have a consensus on
consensus,
something like
fine.
this, please? Consensus? Yep. You're fine.
How do we waive, this is an ordinance?
This is not an ordinance. It's just a city policy that is only implemented with signage at the park.
Okay.
Everybody good with that? Thank you. And at this time, because it's an action item, I'll open it up for public comment. Hearing none. Back to Council
I do
Courtney.
have a question.
Okay.
Without trying to make this complicated, would we want to give out car passes, if you will, something that can go on the dashboard so that police doing the patrol will know who's authorized to be there overnight and who's not?
I think that would be a great idea, and I'll leave that to the chief to decide on that, on how they want to implement that. But, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Thank you. Courtney?
On July 12th, the County Commission voted 4-1 to finalize the Mid-Reach Beach Renourishment Project. This project has been in various stages of design and planning for over 10 years. I know some of you remember going to Tallahassee to promote this project about 13 years ago. The project is a 7.8-mile section of the beach along Satellite Beach and Indian Harbor Beach and will cost a total of $551 million over the course of 50 years. The majority of that funding is coming from the federal government, partially from the state government, and a small amount will be coming from your tourism tax dollars. I have included a thank you letter to the commissioners for their support for the mayor to sign, so I'm hoping to get your permission for him to sign that. The letter that's included is addressed to Commissioner Smith, but I would like to send one of those similar letters to each commissioner that voted in favor of the project.
Who's the one not getting it?
Trudy Infantini.
Consensus?
Consensus.
Yep. This time open up for public comment on this particular action item. Hearing none, back to Council Courtney.
The next one is staff is requesting the approval of a letter requested by Surfrider Foundation that requests the U.S. Department of Interior and Bureau of Ocean Energy Management to deny permit applications for geological and geophysical exploration for oil and gas resources along the Florida coast. You did pass a resolution opposing this type of exploration, and I've included a letter that matches that resolution for your approval.
Thank you. Consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
Open up to public for a comment on this action item. Hearing none. Courtney?
The other item I have, the last, is the city has received an invitation from Air Force 45th Space Wing Public Affairs Office, and that email is attached. Basically, what they're doing is they have a bureau speaking program that they would like to come out and basically increase their communication with their local governments, surrounding local governments, and that the topics that they would speak on is the historical Patrick Air Force Base and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, space launches and the lighthouse, commercial space and innovation, weather, and public safety. So if you have any interest in those topics, let me know, and I can get them to come and provide a presentation to council at a meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Consensus okay with the council? Thank you. I'll open this up because it is under action item for public comment. Hearing none?
I just have a question on that. I mean, how are we looking at doing this, having them come in on one topic? I mean, because this looks like it could be a 45-minute presentation on all four of these.
I think they're saying that they would come in and do a presentation on one of those topics.
And we would just.
So
give them a time
if you
slot.
all have an interest in one of those topics, then we can bring them in to speak.
And I think, didn't they state that any clubs or organizations too? So clubs, organizations, maybe the school would like that sort of site or something on history of the lighthouse or something there, that they want to get engaged with the community. And the general out there is extremely community-minded. So I think we let that be known to clubs and organizations in our...
I mean, even the 55 Club, I mean, there's different entities they could go into that would, I think, be...
Any other business?
I just have one announcement. We did receive the 319 grant for DeSoto Field Stormwater Project, so we're moving forward with the scheduling and the planning of that project.
That's great. Thank you very much. Any further questions for our city manager? None. Thank you, Courtney. Moving on to agenda item 8, discuss, take action on approving funds to participate in the Brevard Zoo oyster mat restoration project. Courtney.
Thank you, Mayor. Back in beginning in February 2014, the city of Satellite Beach partnered with Brevard Zoo, offering monthly opportunities for oyster mat making, and many residents in our community have participated in those workshops, and you see a lot of photos from those workshops. Are very well attended. Attendance at the workshops have been about 50 to 70 people of all ages, and when we were notified that the zoo planned to complete the last workshop in the summer, we reached out to see if they could extend it, because at that time, that was when we had so many phone calls and people coming in saying, what can we do for the lagoon, because we had the fish kill, and we thought, this was a great thing for people to physically do to help out. And they said, well, let us think about that and we'll call you back. And so they did, and they are able to extend those workshops through into January, provided that we provide them with a $5,000 funding participation. We are very fortunate that we had a recent donation from Complete Air and Heat of $5,000 to our recycling bag program. So the money that we had committed for that is now free. So now we have those funds that could be dedicated to this if you so choose.
Thank you.
And I believe the Brevard Zoo people are here.
Thank you. Comments from council? Hold on one second.
Go ahead. I just want to disclose, as most of you are probably aware, I'm still the attorney for the zoo, so I haven't been involved in this agenda item, but I just thought it'd be best to announce that.
Thank you. Comments from council?
I think it's been a great program that our city has embraced, and I think we should move forward with it.
Any further comments before I open it for public? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. I have a motion by Councilman Montanaro, second by Vice Mayor Breimer. At this time, open up for public comment on agenda item 8. Hearing none, back to council. Any further comment? Hearing none, Lenore?
Councilman Dodd?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 9, discuss, take action, first on ordinance 1121, or discuss, take action on ordinance 1123. Jim?
Ordinance number 1121, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, creating a new section 14-3 Satellite Beach City Code, allowing backyard chickens, Gallus domesticus, establishing terms of pilot project, amending sections 14-1 and 14-2 Satellite Beach City Code, resulting from section 14-3, establishing regulations for possession of backyard chickens, providing severability, and providing an effective date. It's the second reading of ordinance number 1121. Ordinance number 1123, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, calling a non-binding referendum election on proposed amendment to the city code which prohibits livestock in the city, establishing a referendum date and providing an effective date. That's the first reading of ordinance number 1123.
Thank you very much. Before we get going, I'd just like to say this. Many of us have sat here for quite a number of years, myself over 16. And I want to thank everybody for or against it, because never has it been this professional. The letters that we received in both ways were very well written, and thank you for participating in this part of our government that I'm glad you guys came out and are participating, no matter which way. We sit here many times in ordinances, and there's nobody in the audience. So thank you for participating. I'm going to run public comment slightly different tonight. If you are a resident in the city limits of Satellite, everybody will get a chance to talk. If you are a resident in the Satellite Beach city limits, I will take you first, and after that, I will open the floor for anyone else who would like to make a comment. Fair? Okay, thank you. Council comments. Go ahead.
I would just like to go through the ordinance real quick and show you what we changed.
Okay.
At your last meeting, you had requested some changes to address some of the concerns that were expressed at the meeting. Part of those concerns were a regard for a setback in which from the fence or from the property line. So we did include that setback. It is the same setback that is required of all of our accessory structures. So depending on the size of the coop, it could be anywhere from 5 feet to 10 feet. We have also changed section 10, where all people who have chickens in coops, they would have to have a 6-foot privacy fence. We included some changes to address just better clarity of the Exhibit A, showing where the buffer zones are, which includes the ocean bluff as well as the 100-foot buffer around conservation areas. And you have this map, and that has been amended, just not really changed from what we showed you last time, just in better condition. We also included a permit requirement. So now this ordinance would require anyone desiring to have chickens to come in, apply for a permit. Once that application is approved, the building department would perform an inspection within 30 days, or after 30 days, I'm sorry. And after that, the building department would have the right to inspect the property at any point. We also, I also included, I know there was some concerns with, would this cost a lot to the city in terms of code enforcement, and we showed some of the other communities in Brevard County that have ordinances that allow chickens and how many complaints they received. From a code enforcement perspective, the staff did not feel that it was really overwhelming at all. There will be a cost to the permit because we would have to come out and inspect the properties. But in terms of code enforcement, the other cities that allow them, we didn't see a huge impact from a code enforcement perspective. So that's in front of you. Also, we wanted to show you some of the cities have lot size requirements, and some don't. So I know that was brought up too, is, some of these other communities have bigger lots. We wanted to show you that that it is really variable. Okay?
Thank you. Courtney, I would like to ask a question on this, because I've spent a lot of time reading a lot of emails. A lot of people that were not in favor of it, actually I met with and spoke. And when I did, the concern that I got from these people was not as great as the chicken being there, but how are we going to monitor this? And how are we going to be able to get in their backyard and make, check it out to make sure it's right? My other concern from it is this. It's a pilot program for a year. The little concerning to me from this standpoint. I'm not for or against them. I want to get the facts and let the facts play themselves. If we have quarterly updates on this, and we find after the first quarter it's a disaster, can we pull the ordinance at that time, or do we have to wait the whole year?
You can pull the ordinance anytime.
Okay, so it's a pilot program for a year, but I would like to see a quarterly report back to us on complaints and so forth, how many permits are out, how many new permits, so that we have a handle on this to see where we're going.
Yeah, that would just be a policy you would just direct us to do. I don't think that needs to be in the ordinance, but that would certainly be just, if council wanted us to bring that back to you on a quarterly basis, we would certainly do that at your request.
Myself, I want to keep up on it. I'm more for the first ordinance than the second. My reasoning behind it. If we go to vote and it passes, be careful what you wish for. Because if we have the vote, I know it's non-binding, but if we make people vote for it and they want it, it's going to be a lot harder to pull away if it turns out not to be good for us. And I'm not saying it isn't, because I believe there's more chickens out there than we know about. So if the people never came to us, never showed up in the room, or didn't try to make themselves, not preaching right or wrong, legal, okay, would we ever have known how many there are? Because there is no record of any complaints with our police department. So I'm more for the first one, keeping a good toll on it, and come back here and be able to, with statistics and facts, see if there's an issue or there's a problem. And the reason I say that is I called some people who had against the chickens. I talked to people who were for them. I talked to Mr. Wade, who has written a couple of very good emails to me, and I really broke it down and said, what is the issue? And the issue really to them is inspection, and to make sure that we have the ability to enforce what we have here. And once I talked him through that, he said, well, I'm not going to go get them, but as long as we can enforce it, I really don't have that bad of a problem. Martha Kirby, who I was very interested in her comment, said the same thing. I'm not buying any, but if you can at least have the ability to turn this thing off if there's a problem, and or the ability to regulate it, then I'm for it. So that's why I'm more for the first one, to try it, but I want the ability that if it doesn't work, that I can take it out of here in a heartbeat. That's my, what I like on it.
I was just going to ask, you might want to ask Councilwoman Gott to present the second ordinance, since that was her submittal.
Well, first of all, we cannot stop this after a quarter or any quarter. It states in here in section 4 on page 3 specifically, after that first year, the council may change it, rescind it, whatever. So that is not allowed.
Unless we change that.
Unless you change that.
Okay.
Secondly, when you talk about the first one, does that mean the one that we looked at on first reading?
No, ma'am, I'm the one that's right here. The one right
Oh,
here.
okay.
With the updated ability to have permits, go in people's yards. And again, like I stated, I want to see that provision stricken. I don't want the first year. I want to be able to keep up on this. And, you know.
Okay, then I do want to present the alternative, which is to give our voters a say. This is an extremely controversial issue. We're right here at election time. We've already got 5 referendum questions on that ballot. There's absolutely nothing extra to adding a 6th question. This will give us guidance. Is this wanted or is it not? I'm not afraid of what the outcome will be. If the majority want it, you'll never hear from me again on this issue. But if they make it clear that they don't want it, we should not be pursuing this. And that's the way we do it in Satellite Beach. Excuse me. So I'm asking the council to go with ordinance 1123 and place this question on a non-binding referendum ballot.
I'm looking at it from this perspective. Just as you've indicated, there are probably chickens that have been in our city for years. So if we don't do anything until November, and we look at the alternative ordinance, what are we hurting? We're still going to get some feedback from our residents because, as I said in the last meeting, I've had more people come up to me that are against chickens than for chickens. And I'm kind of like Frank. It doesn't really bother me or hurt me if we have chickens, but I would rather know that the majority of the residents in our city are going to be comfortable with this, because I look at this from an enforcement issue. What we're doing and what we're creating is we're pitting neighbor against neighbor to make the complaints. And I don't feel that's what we should be moving toward as a city. We already have reactive reinforcement instead of proactive enforcement on everything else we do in our city. And now we're encompassing more reactive by waiting for neighbors to complain about their neighbors. And I don't think that's how we operate as a city. If we come back with this referendum and 70% of the people or 75% of the people or 65% of the people want chickens, then I feel very comfortable moving in that direction. But if it doesn't come back that way, then I'm voting for something that pits neighbor against neighbor to complain about a neighbor. And I don't think that's what we should be doing in the city. We've got an opportunity here to wait 4 more months to make a decision. None of this stuff is going to go away. The people that have chickens are still going to be able to have them, and then we'll know what the residents of our city want, and we can make a decision based on those residents' concerns. So I would support the second ordinance.
Further comments? Go ahead, Martin.
Okay, first of all, Frank, I think your comment with the ability to pull it back, if you find out that things aren't working, and that's in ordinance number 1121.
Right.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, that kind of solves the problem that this is out there and it's not working. If we're running into what Dominic has suggested could happen, is that you pit neighbor against neighbor, you could pull it back and take a look at it at that point. Trying to find a middle ground here, would there be an opportunity, would council want to consider going ahead and putting this on there as a question on the ballot, but proceed with the current ordinance? So we could allow people that have this going to go ahead and get going. We're still monitoring it, but we could still, Lorraine, go back and get the feedback in November and find out what's going on. I mean,
You see how that will be perceived? It will be perceived as our asking our residents what they want after we've told them what they're going to get.
I personally don't see it that way from this standpoint. We have no information here bad against them. By doing it as a pilot project and being able to pull it whenever we want, we're going to gain information. And even if between now and November and it's on there, we're going to have information that we can look at to say if it's good or bad. Because right now, you can't show me. I have talked to many people, and I get totally the opposite what people are telling me. They said they wouldn't have them, but if you can regulate it and be able to check it, they're willing to give it a try, because this is a pilot program. And we have no information out there right now to say it's bad. Everything we've gathered, we have no complaints from our police department. So my only thing is that the people have them. Most of the people I've talked to said to me, I don't care one way or the other, as long as you can manage it, and I'm not going out and getting them. I really feel that the great majority of the people that have them at this point have them. And I don't think all of a sudden, if we pass it, 500 more people are running out and getting pet chickens, or 5,000. I just don't see that. But for the newer generation that's coming in our town, who, I've done a little research on those groups, there are people who lived here. They moved back to our community. I did a little research on who they were. They got masters and doctorates, and they're school teachers, and they're intelligent people. They wrote us very, very good emails, and it's not something they're against our city. They have a new way of thinking. Will it fit in our city? If I tell them no right off, I never stand the ability to find out more information. Because if it passes on November, and it turns out bad, how are you going to tell all those people that want it, no, we're not going to do it now? That's going to be harder. My feeling is, we have nothing negative other than you might not just like it. And the people that I've talked to, again, it's an enforcement issue. Can we enforce it so that we know where the permits are, where the chickens are through permits? And if we do have a problem, we're going to have a record of it. And that's why I'd like to not wait a year, personally, so we keep up on it.
The converse of your question is true. You said, how can we tell the folks that want it they can't have it? Well, if they wind up being in a minority, my question is, how can we tell the majority who don't want it that we don't give a damn what they think?
There's two ways, right? But right now, there's nothing here that the people I've talked to, Councilman Gott, I've talked to many of them. I've talked to people, I talked to Bud, who said he wasn't for it. And when I explained, I said, okay, let's break it down into the lowest. What is the issue? What is the issue? Well, if it's dirty, it smells, if you can't enforce it. And I said, well, if we put a provision in that we can enforce it, and we can go out and inspect it, he said, then I'm really not against it. I talked to Martha. She wasn't going out and buying any chickens anytime real soon, but she was willing to take it because of it's a pilot program and we can stop it. And that's my only thing. I can assure everybody here, don't come to my house for eggs, because I will not have any chickens. But it's more of a trend. Everything you read about cities and where they're going and so forth, I mean, it's more here than not here now. And it's a different train of thought. We've always been a progressive city. We've bought a ton of beach. We've always looked at stormwater differently than everybody. And I'm not saying in 6 months I'm going to be for this, but I'm willing to let people have an opportunity when there's no negative out there from a police or that. I mean, I've talked to other cities. I've spent a lot of time talking to people. I went over some people's houses that wrote some pretty nice letters who said they were scared to come up here and talk, and I assured her that I'm glad they came and did speak to us. And so my thing is not a for or against, because I could tell you if it's not right, I will definitely pull this as fast as you can believe. But nothing here shows me it's that right now. So
how do you plan to tell those people they have to get rid of their chickens?
Well, first off, the ordinance right here, very simple. If you pull this ordinance, we have permits, and that permit is telling us where they are. And I would hope those people who participated, a lot of them, in this process here, will abide by the law. We have that ability to check and go by their house because it's in here. And then we tell them it didn't pass, it didn't work. Here's the reasons why. We had 50 complaints. We had sick birds. Whatever those parameters are, we're going to have the ability to track it. And once you have the ability to track it, then you're going to have data. But, I feel the community is probably a little more 50-50. I mean, the people I'm talking to are all different age brackets. And I guess people who don't want it, and I appreciate that very much. And I got people that want it. But it's not this overwhelming group of people that tell me, absolutely not. I have a lot of people, a lot more people telling me, I wouldn't have them for anything. Great. I mean, that's their, ability to have it. And that's why I don't think people are going to go out and all of a sudden we're going to get this huge influx of people picking up permits.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt ordinance 1123 on first reading. That's the one that calls for the referendum.
I have a motion by Councilman Gott.
I'll second it.
Second by Vice Mayor, Councilman Montanaro.
I'd like to reference this sheet that was passed out. The smallest lots that we see on here are larger than what we have in Satellite Beach.
Larger than mine.
Melbourne Beach has 0.5 acre lot. They've had 2 complaints. But I mean, if you look at all the rest of them, we have 75-foot lots in parts of Satellite Beach. These are, no permit, no restrictions. Yeah, but if you look at these cities, their lots are definitely larger than the lots we have at Satellite Beach. Rockledge's lots are larger, so are Palm Bay. I mean, I look at our lots, they're smaller lots. We're looking at enforcement. We're looking at, we've done no data study on what this program is going to cost our city. You haven't given us any numbers on what it's going to cost for them to go out and inspect these things. We have no data to go on what the building department is going to, what it's going to cost the building department to go out.
That's why.
Is what we're bringing in permit costs going to pay for the inspections that need to be done? We don't have anything to gauge this on. So we're making a decision, and like I said, I'm just looking at this. What's it going to cost the city? We're having neighbors complain about neighbors. We're on smaller lot sizes than any of these other cities are, and we don't have the data. We're being asked to make a decision without this information.
We called Palm Bay, and they have many homes with the lot sizes we have, as well as Rockledge, but they don't have, they allow it in all of their lot sizes. Rockledge passed their ordinance in 2014. They are a city of about 24,000 people, and they've received 18 permits in that period of time. So it was negligible to us in terms of cost for the city. We just don't see us having such an influx where it's killing the code enforcement department to issue the permits and perform that type of inspection. The inspection is pretty minimal, so we didn't see it as a big cost to us. We just didn't. So we don't feel that it's going to be a financial impact on the city.
I have a motion and a second. I'll take more comments.
This is a question more than a comment. So the choice before council tonight is either or. It's either 1123 or it's 1121. That's the option we have. Is that correct?
That's
Yes, and
presented here, but if somebody wants to make a motion after we've dealt with this one on the other ordinance.
Right, and we can make a change to the other ordinance if we want to. Okay, so we have one up right now with the motion and the second. Is there any more discussion?
I just have one question.
Sure.
My only question is, can we explain what non-binding means for those who don't know what non-binding
It means
means?
you don't have, the council is not bound. Like if it came out that most people want it, we're not bound to provide it. If most people say they don't want it, we're not bound to bar it. It's just to get a sense of voter preference.
Okay. Before I open up any further comment from council members on 1123, or the motion that's on, guys now. Hearing none. Okay, I'm going to open up the floor. Remember, please, citizens of Satellite, the city limits Satellite Beach first, and then I'll open it up for remaining. The floor is now open.
Joanne Regan, city resident. I like eggs. I like chicken. but I also like democracy, and I love the idea of letting the voters say, this is what we want or what we don't want. I also like quiet, and when I bought my house, I knew A1A was there, but I also knew the back part of my house was the quiet zone of my house. If my neighbors, even though there's no roosters allowed, if my neighbor right below my two-story house decides to get a chicken coop, chickens make noise. That's the part of my house that's quiet. I'd like to keep it that way. They don't make noise like a rooster does, but they certainly make noise. I think that it's a good idea to let the people decide. When you've bought a house and you know what you're buying, it's not always fun to have the character of your neighborhood changed. I also think that it's going to be expensive to put up a chicken coop and pay for a permit. I wonder if some people wouldn't just wait until the pilot year was over before they incurred that expense, and the people that were deciding to have chickens would just wait. So maybe during that year there wouldn't be a lot of people having chickens because they don't want to spend the money until they know it's a done deal. So it's something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Floor is still open. John?
John Fergus, 135 Maple. I'm neither pro nor anti. My suggestion would be maybe you want to combine these two. By the way, there are three options. You can adopt either ordinance. You can adopt no ordinance. So there are three options. If you hold a referendum, okay, you get a sense for the community. At that point, you could implement the trial again. It wasn't a binding referendum. You can do your trial for the following year or whatever period, and if problems develop, then you can shut it down early. But you can get a sense for the community, and then you can say, okay, a majority of the people are happy, or maybe it's only 49%, but you say, you know, that's a big chunk of the community, let's give it a shot, and now you have the demographics behind it, then you collect, and it's right. People are going to have to spend money to make coops and do all this stuff, and then you've got these pets, and you come back and say, hey guys, we're shutting the door. Now you've got some unhappy people, both emotionally and fiscally. So my suggestion would be you might want to try A, then B.
Thank you. The floor is still open. Again, residents of the city of Satellite Beach first.
I'm Thomas Everly, Satellite Beach resident. It's the first time ever being here. I would say let's have chickens and less legislation on it. You know, I think people should be able to have it and not have all this interference from government. I mean, there's plenty of animals out there that already make a bunch of noise. How many people have dogs in their neighborhood that make noises all different hours of the day and night? There are plenty of cats out there that should be kept on leash. That are not out there. There's plenty of other things that need to be enforced. So I'm for chickens. Thank you.
Ma'am, please. And pull that mic down so you could talk.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you very much.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Everybody can hear. My name is Ann Fredericks, and my husband Ken and I have lived in Satellite Beach for over 45 years. When we heard that the city was considering allowing residents to raise live chickens in Satellite Beach, we were appalled. We strongly disapprove of this for many reasons. When I was a young girl in the 1940s, I was raised on a small family farm. In keeping with the World War II effort to help feed ourselves so more food could be shipped to the troops overseas, we also raised some chickens behind our garage. I can tell you from personal experience, caged chickens create a strong, objectionable odor and do not belong in any residential area.
However, my greater concern is for the wildlife that is attracted to the presence of live chickens. I also know from my own experience that snakes, rats, and possums will attack live chickens. And they also love the availability of chicken feed. We already have coyotes in our neighboring town, and you can be sure that they will be happy to take up residence in our city, not only to steal chickens, but also any stray cats or small dogs if the opportunity presents itself. Satellite Beach is a wonderful place to live, but it is a residential city and not rural farmland. Please do not allow this travesty to happen to our beautiful city. Thank you.
Almaty, sir, please. Mike.
Mike Roses, 520 Rosada Street, citizen. I appreciate everybody taking all the time to discuss this. It is very controversial. One of the things we mentioned about a pilot program, but what I haven't heard or read yet is the parameters. You mentioned parameters or benchmarks. How do you pull back a pilot unless you have some manner to measure the success and or failure of any pilot program? If you end the project, what do you do with the chickens that are already permitted and out there? Okay, the Humane Society has its own views. I'm not advocating the Humane Society show up here and check out Satellite Beach, but what do you do with the chickens? Our Humane Societies and whatnot are already full of animals that the gentleman said are out there, cats and the dogs that bark all night. But that shows a lack of enforcement. That's why we have feral cats, because owners don't take care of their animals. That's why we have dogs bark all night, because nobody's there knocking on the door owner's house. So we create another system. Do we want to continue having that type of enforcement, draining the resources of the city for a handful, and again, it is a handful, of residents who, with good intent, want to teach their children certain good character? This is fine. This is dandy. But like going back to puppies and kittens, the pounds are full of those that all had good intent at one time or another in their life cycle. So I remain opposed to it for those reasons stated. Again, the intent of the program to me is fine, it's all legitimate, it's the operational implementation.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Because you said benchmark. Because the people that I talked to, part of the concern was enforcement and so forth in that benchmark. What's your consideration of a benchmark?
If you're going to run a pilot program, one, you have to look at violations. That's a measurable thing. And then who actually enforces animal enforcement here? The other part would be increases in observation of the wild game that my previous speaker just mentioned. Coyotes, snakes, rats. We all have vermin out here anyhow. And just kind of, brainstorming things of that ideas and talk to some of the other communities is what did they first go through in their first year or two of establishing this that weren't quite acceptable, but their codes already permitted the whole process. They didn't do a pilot program.
Just, again, because what I'm hearing from everybody is more of this enforcement and how do we gauge this for it. So thank you very much for your input. Okay, floor is still open again. Satellite Beach first, please.
I'm Roxanne Levitt, resident of Satellite Beach. With all due respect, I've raised chickens since the 1980s. I'm from Virginia, the Richmond, Virginia area. I lived in a rural setting. You cannot compare the backyard chicken program here in Satellite Beach with a rural setting. You're not going to allow that. It is it is inconceivable to me in this day of age that we would even cage the chickens, aside from having a coop, which must meet standards. You have to establish those standards, which would be in the ordinance. The cleanliness, we're talking 2 to 4 chickens, hens. Their waste products are used as fertilizer. We're looking at a minimal amount of that. They're great buggers. We have a problem with mosquito larvae. Chickens love mosquito larvae. We have a problem with cinch bugs in our yards. I personally do not like having to put down products in my yard which my dogs come in contact with. I never had a problem with insects in the ground where I lived. You're talking about predators. Predators are here. Snakes, cats, dogs, rats, coyotes, osprey. I lived on the James River. My biggest concern were the osprey. Believe it or not, chickens are not pea brains like peacocks. They can sense the danger, they get under the coverage. So they would need cover, like a tree, a bush, which most people have in their yards. Snakes. A snake isn't going to come after a chicken with eggs. Chickens are pretty fierce about that. I have never seen a snake get into any of my coops, ever, ever. Rats, God love the chickens. Yes, rats will try to get into the feed. Another part of your ordinance should be proper containment of the feed to prevent that. You should include, I think I mentioned, the containers, the waste products, the good enclosures. All of those kinds of things should be as within your ordinance as benchmarks. The noise, I have neighbors, and the dog barks constantly. No one does anything about that. Hens don't create that much noise unless they're caged. Free-range chickens do not create that much noise. And we're talking hens, not roosters. And you're talking a minimal amount, 2 to 4. Will they cackle? Yeah, you're going to hear most noise in the morning and at dusk. Are you going to hear them at night? Not unless there's danger, because fowl go to roost at night. They don't alarm unless there's danger. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Floor is still open for Satellite Beach residents. Please.
Domingo Sanchez, Royal Palm Boulevard. I'm fairly new to this city. My grandparents, both of them, Puerto Rican and American, both raised chickens all their lives. It was fun as a child to see them raised. We didn't have any real problems with animals or concerns. I would like my children to do the same here. Again, talking about 2 to 4 chickens in a small setting. The noise is minimal. My kids go to Surfside Elementary here, and the 4-H group they do a wonderful job. And a lot of kids are engaged in the chickens, and they're getting outside. They're not playing video games. They're actually doing something with these animals. So to me, it shows it's developing character for the children, but it's also getting them outside and involved in the environment and seeing what we can do to foster that development, I guess. So I think the idea is good. I'm going to go back to, I think the gentleman here said that it's probably best to do a combination. Let the people vote, but then get your pilot program. It's going to be an expense because you're requiring these coops and inspections. I like less government. I'm a big, hey, get government out of the way. It's kind of overregulated as it is now. But if it's something that will allow us to move forward, what I would like to see is after your benchmarks is some of that let's just randomly show up and inspect, go away after the pilot is over. So I would be for a combination of a little bit of both. Let the people, because I like democracy, but I also like the idea, if you have a lot of people out there complaining or having a lot of issues with it, but based on all the data you have over there on the table that I was reading, the other cities that you researched, it doesn't appear that there's very many code problems or violations at this moment. So I'm not sure what the issue is. It seems like a relatively small group of people who are actually going to go out and do it, and then the code violations are even smaller than that. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir, you said you live on Royal Palm Boulevard. Yes. You know that's in the county.
No, it's not.
So satellite, it's in your map. Take a look at your map.
No, it's right here.
It's right off of A1A and
It's right across from Pelican Beach, ma'am?
right across from Pelican Beach.
Yes. Yes.
Here.
I have no idea. Here. We'll show her on the map.
It's right across from the A-frame. It's directly across from the A-frame, that street that comes right out to the A-frame.
Yep. Okay, please. Thank you, sir, very much. Floor is still open? Floor is still open?
Devin Van, I live on Harwood Avenue in Satellite Beach. I would like to speak in favor of ordinance 1121 more so than the second one, and also point out that our current code enforcement situation is neighbor versus neighbor. If a neighbor has a dog that barks all night, you complain. If a neighbor has a chicken at this point, you can complain. No one's complaining. They exist. No one's upset about it. And so the idea that it's going to change dramatically if you guys do something now rather than kick the can down the road is, to me, just is unfounded. So I would like to support 1121.
Floor is open. Don?
Don McClendon, resident. About 5 years ago, we had a neighbor, and they had chickens. I don't know how many chickens they had. Most people in the neighborhood didn't know they had chickens. And when it became known that they had chickens, most people in the neighborhood didn't care, because they weren't a problem. They were no issue. It didn't become an issue until this particular individual got into some political brouhaha with the city, so somebody dropped a dime on them. Code enforcement came out, it turned into a huge fiasco. But I agree with the young lady here, and you said there's chickens here, we think, and you're not getting any complaints. So I think this thing is just so totally blown out of proportion. Talk a referendum to do this referendum, don't do this one. Then you're talking about have chicken police that are going to go to somebody's poor house where their little kids have got little chicken hen Daisy and little chicken, and they're going to go confiscate their chickens from their little kids. I mean, it's horrible. So anyway, I just think this thing is so blown out of proportion.
Thank you. Floor is open for resident or non-resident at this point.
We have had complaints, and they're not even allowed in the city.
No, I'm sorry. No comment.
Bill Duckworth, resident, Hibiscus Drive. By the nature of my profession, I can live pretty much anywhere in the country. I can live in Southern California, I can live in Boston, I can live in Kennedy, I can be based in Fort Lauderdale. I've chosen to be based in Orlando, and one of the huge reasons is because I've had friends who lived in Satellite Beach, and I love this place. I've lived all over the country. Satellite Beach is a phenomenal community. That being said, I'm going to completely agree with this gentleman. This thing has gotten so completely out of control. We're talking a couple of chickens. I used to own a 100-pound retriever. She left a heck of a lot more waste than a couple of chickens. I mean, if we're talking about waste, if we're talking about smell, that's people who hold on to that. It's kind of an uninformed fear, if you will. It's a valid fear, because when people are not familiar with something, they tend to be afraid of it. Riley, who's no longer with us, kept me busy cleaning up after her. I've also been around chickens where I lived in a previous country. It's not a comparison. Also, they make very, very little noise compared to the rest of the noise we all experience, whether it's a cat in heat, whether it's a dog barking, or whether it's the obnoxious teenagers behind me and playing in the pool all day long. That doesn't bother me. I don't have kids, but I remember being a child, but it's a bunch of noise that I'd rather not have, but it's part of living in a city. And we got this whole process where everybody in city council is here, we're so wrapped up over a couple of tiny chickens compared to dogs and cats and everything. It's just a little, disconcerting. So I'm 100% in favor of this chicken ordinance and to let people have them. This is a great place to live, and I think it would add to the community.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the floor is still open? Here, all right. Come on, that's all right.
Hello, guys. Terrence Brookins, Satellite Beach.
You do it. You do the mic. Yep, thanks.
All right. All right, can everybody hear me now?
They will.
All right, good. So, okay, for Satellite Beach, I'm a resident, as you all know. You just heard me say it. I think for 1121, that's where you try out for the whole year, and then at the end of the year, you decide if you want to go with it. And 1123 is we all do a ballot for it, correct? So my point is, I'm a dunderheaded 21-year-old kid, and I'm thinking, hey, if I see that in a ballot, I'm going to try out this whole chicken thing. I didn't even know we had a chicken ordinance. But then, 3 months later, I'm like, I hate these chickens, and I need to get rid of them now. What's going to stop, other kids like me from getting these chickens and, just abandoning them, 2 weeks later, things like that? And, I know there's the chicken police and everything like that, but you can't explore everywhere. Who's going to pay these chicken police this whole time? I don't want to do that for free, things like that. It's who would do this and who would regulate these chickens if you so happen to say no to this? And besides, this might be a sloppy example, but chickens are like guns, because people are going to have them. They're not going to say they're not going to report their chickens in if you say you can't have them. They're just going to not tell you guys. So what I'm saying is just how would you regulate it, and how are you going to find the big bad chickens if you say no?
Thank you.
All right.
Floor is still open? Please.
My name is Erica Mayer, and I'm a resident in Indian Harbor, and my husband is wincing because I'm terrible at speaking up here. I'm a teacher at Surfside Elementary, and I am the Coop Mama at Wickham Park Coop and the 4-H leader. We just want to put out there that if you pass this, we are willing to do free chicken classes, completely free, and we will help in every way possible. So we have an amazing group of parents. We have over 35 members in our club. We've all been working with chickens for 3 years. We know a lot about them, and Joe Walter couldn't be here tonight, but he's the person we go to when we have a factual question. So we just want to put that out there, that we're willing to help in any way possible, give free classes, assist in any way. So thank you.
Thank you. Floor still open? Okay, thank you, everybody. Very well done. I'll close public comment, bring it back to council. Courtney, I keep hearing how we're going, the benchmark. How are we going to gauge it? I know in the ordinance 1121, at least this time, we have put in a lot of stipulations about the types of containers and so forth. Can we work a little on not the permitting as much as how? Can you help us out there in any way on how we're going to make the assessment, how we're going to go to those people's houses, and when is there a plan that?
It would just pretty much be like any permit. So once a person makes an application, we would approve the permit. There's basically, we weren't going to put a cost to the permit because it's a pilot project. If that's something you want to continue on after the year, then we may consider that after we get a gauge of how many permits we get and, how long it will take us to do, the inspections and things like that, then we may consider that. But it's kind of unknown. We don't expect it to be a very heavy process. But once somebody applies, we would issue a permit. we would explain the conditions of the ordinance, and then give them whatever time frame they need to install their coop and things like that. And then we would come out and specs, just like if somebody put a roof on their house, they come in, apply for the permit. Once the roof's on, they call us for an inspection, we come out, and we inspect it. So it's a very similar process. And we just make sure that the coop is put in the right setback, they have their correct containers, you know, things like that, and make sure that they're abiding by the ordinance. The permit gives us the ability to respond to a complaint, if we get one, to be able to go into the backyard without any problems. You know, we would be able to regulate it, and then we would be glad to record a very good record of what the complaints were, what the, you know, issues that were associated with the complaints were, how we addressed it, and then report back to you on a quarterly basis. I mean, we have no problem with that. Considering the other cities and the complaints that they received, we're just not expecting that many complaints.
Mark? Well, you know, what Courtney just said, Frank, about the quarterly report, I think that's fine. I mean, I think that'll do it. The other concern, I want to go back and touch on this, because you mentioned this, is do we need to get with Jim for language on how we can pull it back after the second quarter, things aren't working, we got to pull it back, because that was Frank's suggestion. And
Again, because, again, that benchmark, and I understand the gentleman on where that benchmark, since we haven't done this before, you know, is 5 too many, is 3, and I don't want to wait that year, to be honest with you.
Well, what I was going to suggest is in section 4, just so it shall be deemed, provisions of section 14-3 Satellite Beach City Code shall be deemed a pilot project instead of during the first year, say for up to 1 year after adoption of this ordinance.
Well, that doesn't do anything.
Well, they're concerned about the language saying that they have to be there for a year, they have to do it for a year.
No.
But the problem is the rest of the sentence, which requires the city to wait a year to evaluate the project and make changes.
No, I just think he changed that.
I said for up to 1 year.
So anytime during that
And just
year.
say at which time, or don't say after, just say at which time. At which time the city council.
I just want to make sure that we can, in quarter or at any time, bring it back here.
Yeah, that's what you mentioned, that's what I'm saying. And I know we're not dealing with this ordinance, we're dealing with 1123, but I want to kind of get I kind of want to get it together so that.
And I just wanted to comment on the benchmarks, if I could. We talked about that among staff at length. You know, how would you weigh the program, and what would be the advantage to the city if we put benchmarks like that in? And I would say that we would be at a disadvantage if we put specific benchmarks in the ordinance. And the reason why I say that is you could have one horrible incident. So how many incidents do you need to say no anymore? You know, so I think it would be in our best interest to keep it very substantive, and that you all decide as a council at the end of the program, weighing the evidence we provide you, you decide whether or not the program goes through. Benchmarks, I think, could work not in the city's favor if we put specific parameters in there regarding like how many code enforcement complaints would it trigger for you to say no to the program anymore. I think that would put us in a bad position if we had two, even, you know, 2 may sound minimal, but if there were really horrible complaints, you might want to get rid of the program. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I would recommend that you leave that up to you.
Okay. Can we go ahead and vote?
Further questions?
Nope.
Any other further questions?
Yeah.
Right now?
I just want to say, you know, as Frank alluded to earlier, you know, a lot of us that are sitting up here have been here for a number of years, not only on council, but serving on boards. And this is like a top 5 for me of all the things that I've seen over the years as far as discussion, as far as people contacting me. And you know, the decisions that we make up here, a lot of them pertain to different things that don't pertain to your direct backyards. And this does. And this is the reason why I'm having such heartburn with making this decision, because I see both sides of this. I mean, I understand all of it, but I also understand that there are people that don't want this. So I'm still in favor of 1123. I understand all the concerns. If 1123 gets an overwhelming majority of people that are looking at it, and even if it's 50-50, I can gauge better the decision that I have to make on 1121 and moving forward with whatever pilot program we can institute down the road. But for me to vote on 1121 right now, I don't feel comfortable doing it, because the only people that are, majority of them in this audience that are speaking to us now are pro-chicken. We have had a couple of people that are not pro-chicken, but I've gotten phone calls, I've run into people in I've seen other people and talked to other people that don't feel the same way the pro-chicken people are here. So I can support all of this if we can do it in the progression that's being outlined with the referendum.
Okay. Any further comments?
Yeah, I don't see how any reasonable person can oppose asking our residents what they want.
Fine. I'll tell you why I do. Very simple. We have no information for them at all, and that's the purpose of the pilot program, is to run it for a time, and that's why I want it in quarterly. If we find that 2 months, that it's not working, I feel people elected us here to make logical decisions for the community as a whole. And, you know, if I say no to them, am I getting rid of the chickens? Because right now, they're here. If they would have never come up here to make them legal, to be part of the community and part of the discussion, we wouldn't be in this room. And the chickens would still be out in the people's backyard in their neighborhoods. Absolutely, and probably cause less of a problem than dogs, cats, and parrots, and so forth. So I'm not for or against it. I just want to know the facts down the road and be open-minded. I think we've been a very open-minded community. We had a sustainability board. If you sit in, it's definitely a different mindset. I moved here in 1959, 60. I grew up here, a different mindset than today. And they're all part of our community. And I have no problem in making a decision to try something. But I would tell those people, if it doesn't work, I also can tell you I'm not going to vote for it. I mean, you know, so that's where I stand on it. I haven't seen anything brought by experts that we've had here to ever tell me something I shouldn't at least give it an opportunity. That's it. That's where I'm from.
We have a
So,
motion on the
we do.
And I would just like to say one thing too. Again, we do have a mechanism to let people know what's going on. We have the Beachcaster. And I agree with you. We are here to make decisions for our city. But on something like this, it gets back to what I said earlier, I think it's important for our residents to know what's going on. And I think that a Beachcaster article followed up by this referendum explaining the pilot program and doing all of that, if they choose to want to support it, then it moves forward. But I don't feel comfortable making this decision on 1121 without looking at 1123. And we can have something in the Beachcaster that outlines the whole program and makes it palatable.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Any further discussion? Lenore?
And we're voting on 1123.
Correct. 1123.
Councilman Osmer?
No.
Vice Mayor Breimer?
No.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Councilman Gott?
Yes.
Mayor Catino?
No. 3-2.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1121 with the changes outlined by Jim Beadle, and I think that was it.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor Breimer, second by Councilman Osmer. I will open for further discussion here.
In case you're interested, the changes that the city attorney suggested do not answer the mail. They don't get you where you need to be. If you want the wording that would do it, I can give it to you.
Well, I'm going to do this on that question, as I've always stated before. I appreciate your writing ability very, very much and everything. Jim is our attorney.
I know that.
And it's not, so Jim is the attorney, and me in the position I am, I need to rely on what my attorney writes here, because that's who's going to back us up in this process. That's all I'm saying. So Jim, if you would like to take a second, if you need a few minutes and you want to take a recess and come back so you can reword this, I'll be more than happy to do that. If you feel comfortable with the changes you made that Lenore has recorded, then just please indicate it and we'll move on.
I don't have an issue with the suggested change. It gives you council up to a year for the pilot program, and they can, in their discretion, rescind the ordinance whenever they want to.
Okay. Any further discussion? And again, I'm going to open up for public on 1121 because it's a new motion on the floor. Hearing none, back to council.
Mr. Mayor, will you call a recess for about 5 minutes?
I will not.
Okay.
I mean, he is our attorney. He wrote it. Okay, hold on. Does anybody else want a recess?
I'm not opposed to recess. We want to take 5 minutes. It's 8:30. We've been here for an hour and a half. If you want to take 5 minutes, I'm good with that.
Again,
For whatever
I'm gonna
reason.
ask-
For whatever
wait, time
reason.
out. Here's the thing. Jim's the attorney hired by this council. If his suggestion that that is good, I'm going to take my attorney's recommendation that it is, okay? Because he's the one who is our legal voice on this council. If anybody else would like us to take a break, and if Jim feels comfortable to need more time, I'll honor it.
I'm good to go.
Good to go?
It doesn't matter to me.
Jim, I'm going to leave it to you if you feel comfortable.
I feel comfortable with it.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. Lenore?
Councilman Scott?
No.
Councilman Montanaro?
No.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breimer? Yes. Mayor Catino?
Yes, motion passes 3-2. Okay, we've been at this since 7. I want to thank everybody very much for the process. I would also like you to continue with the process. Please keep an eye on this from both sides. It is a pilot program, and as I said before, from myself as the mayor, and one thing about the mayor position, we can't make a motion, we can't second it, we break ties. So yes, I understand I was the tiebreaker in this. I'm a very open-minded person. If this doesn't work, I'm telling you, I'm not going to vote for it, and that's why I want the timing the way it is. But I thank you, everybody, for your participation. You've been very professional in this from both sides, and I thank you. And at this time, I'm going to ask for council, we'll take a 10-minute break. Gone. I'd like to reconvene the city council meeting and move on to agenda item 10. Discuss, take action on health insurance renewal and creation of an employee health care clinic. Suzanne?
Thank you, Mayor. So this evening, we have before you an item that covers two different topics. The first part is a discussion on the city's health plan renewal. This is our first renewal after your action last year, taking us from a fully insured plan to a partially self-insured plan. The other part of this action item relates to a discussion on the employee health clinic and the steps we're taking to move in the direction of bringing that to life. And I just wanted to state before we get into the presentation, just as a reminder, part of the reason we've gone down this path is to meet two goals that City Council set in 2015. The first goal was to pursue an employees health clinic with other partners, and that's a multi-city effort that we've gotten into that you'll hear more about tonight. And the second goal is that we be vigilant for other ideas to reduce health care costs for the city and the employees while maintaining employee benefits. And I think what you're going to hear tonight is that our first step toward that you took last year has really brought us to a good point. And I've got Sean Fleming, who is with our health insurance broker, Garing Group, here to do a presentation on a lot of the details for you tonight and obviously answer any questions you may have. So I'll turn it over to Sean.
Thank you, Suzanne. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. So Suzanne gave a great introduction, and I'm going to kind of dive right into things here. And we've got a couple pieces of just background information to bring everybody kind of up to speed, make sure everybody's on the same page, and then we'll talk about both the renewal and the clinic. So, and I'm happy to take any questions along the way or at the end, whichever works better for you all. Just real quick, a couple of items we're going to discuss tonight, but just diving right back into them. So as Suzanne said, last year we made a switch. I know we spoke about it in some detail last year to, the program is actually called graded funding, but it's essentially a partially self-funded program. It's a hybrid between being fully insured and self-funded. So the maximum increase with that, and I say maximum, ended up being a 26.9% increase. 25% of that 26.9 is what we call a claims corridor. So that's essentially a risk difference between being in fully insured and self-funded. So point that out. Big things about that program, obviously any unused funds from the claims stay in the city's bank. Any claims over $30,000 Cigna covers, so any catastrophic claim. So if you have somebody that has a premature baby, it's a $500,000 claim typically. The city only pays the first $30,000 of that. And then
$30,000, goes against the self-insured portion.
The first $30,000, yes, and then the rest is essentially written off by the reinsurance. So, and then there's also what we call aggregate coverage, which covers the overall cost of the program. There's monthly protection from a cash flow basis, but ultimately that's a year-end total if your claims exceeded that amount. There was one upgrade that was made on the plan. It was required actually by the Affordable Care Act regarding prescriptions, having them have to count towards the out-of-pocket maximum. And then other than that, there were no other plan changes. I've showed you this slide before. I know when we did our last presentation, but just to kind of give you an idea of the funding spectrum out there, we've got fully insured, which is the least risk, but also the least reward. And then at the bottom, we've got completely self-funded, and then your guys' program is kind of right in the middle. So I already talked about these, but I put it in your presentation just in case you wanted any more information, but individual and aggregate, just so everybody understands what those coverages are. Here, real high level, I think y'all are familiar with this, is just a summary of the current plan benefits. There's a $15 copay for a primary care visit, $30 for a specialist. If you go inpatient or outpatient hospital, you pay $150 per admission deductible, so they hit you with that $150, and then you pay 15% of the cost after that if you stay in the hospital or if you have a surgery outpatient or procedure. Emergency room is $150 per visit. That's waived if you get admitted. Urgent care is $50, and then the pharmacy, $15 for generic, $40 for your lower cost brand name drugs, and then what we call your non-preferred brand name drugs, $70. The easiest way I explain that is if you saw it during a golf commercial, it's probably the $70, or during a golf tournament, a commercial, it's probably the $70 drug. There's no deductible on the plan, and the maximum out of pocket at $3,000. So, how is the plan run? Kind of going into taking a look. So what we have on the spreadsheet, and it's actually more legible than I thought it would be, so that's good. The column on the left is the total plan funding. The way that's derived is we take the number of people in each tier on the plan, and that's multiplied by the rate of the plan. So you have your plan funding in your first column there. Administration is the cost that is paid to Cigna to administer the plan, do your ID cards, offer wellness programs, all those things are included in administration. Individual stop loss, really the biggest cost, that's just protection on those large claims, the $30,000. That's built in, that's about $24,000 a month. That piece of, just so everybody kind of knows, that piece of the program is the way the insurance companies look at it, whether it's Cigna or anyone else, is what we call a pooled product. So with about 100 employees, Satellite Beach is not what we call credible for stop loss. So they don't look at your results solely on their own and rate you based on that. The reason being, you know, like I use that example of a $500,000 claim, you know, one claim on a group your size would completely throw that upside down. Unfortunately, you know, large claims don't happen based on the size of your employer. You know, if somebody has 100,000 employees, you can still have that claim just like the city could. So aggregate stop loss, you'll see, because it's much lower probability of having that actual expense occur, is a lot less. And then in here we have the total paid claims in each month. And if you take a look at October, and then November was actually a little bit of a high month. The first 2 months are what we call immature, because your old contract, which ended on September 30th, which was fully insured, that contract was responsible for all run-out claims. So let's say you went into the hospital on September 20th and you had a $50,000 event. By the time they submit that claim, it gets reviewed, it's probably not paid till October or November. So what you have is October and November are what we call immature. So they're actually artificially low. And then in the next column we have within that, there's a terminal liability. Cigna builds it into your rates and discounts things the first 2 months so you can set that aside. So if you ever were to leave, the city already has the money set aside to cover any run-out claims. So what we do is we total all those items up, even including the terminal liability, which is probably overly conservative because you're still holding that money, but we're showing it as an expense. And we look in the last column whether or not there's a surplus or deficit for the month. And you'll see you've had a couple of months around kind of a break even. The first month, February, you have a few months in the red, so the claims are a little bit higher. And then you've got a number of positive months. So overall, the plan is positive about $42,000 through the first 9 months of the plan year. We'd like to see it a little bit better, but it's definitely better than red numbers at the end of the day. So.
Question there?
Yes, sir.
Is that because if we had more employees during the year, which would have affected that? Or is that just?
So ultimately, if you have more employees, what I would say, and Courtney can add anything there, is, you know, the number of employees that's going to drive that plan funding column, so it would increase that. And then obviously the claims that they have would increase. So, you know, if you had 10 more employees and they didn't have any claims, those numbers would be positive. If you had 10 more employees, but they were all going to the doctor every day or the hospital, you know, potentially be negative. So.
Well, let me ask, I'll follow up on that one. You notice in the narrative it said retiree rates are increasing. Are some of these claim costs retiree, or are these just employee costs?
So the claims on the plan are both the employees and the retirees.
So where it said the retiree rate is increasing, that's part of
Correct.
These numbers where they've gone up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it's a combination of both. And the biggest thing that you have going on as we look at your data, there's obviously PHI, which is protected health information, but we are able to look at some of the claims, and the biggest thing that's going on right now is you have about 7 or 8 claims that are within $5,000 of that $30,000 limit. So what's happening is you have a bunch of these kind of, let's call them mid-range claims. They haven't hit stop loss, so you're paying, you know, in that number, you're paying for that whole claim still. Now we have 3 months to go, so if claims are still being incurred, more of those people may hit that 30,000 threshold. But, you know, from a plan performance point of view, this year you're having more of those than normal in like that 20 to almost up to 30,000 range. So it's hurting a little bit versus if you had $200,000 claims and then a bunch of small ones, because you wouldn't pay. So that's really what's going on as we look at the data. And on a group your size, you know, we really look at these programs over a 3-year basis, because you're probably going to have one so-so year, probably going to have one really good year, and you're probably going to have one not as good year. So, so jumping into the renewals, so the initial renewal was provided by Cigna at 12%, which is really in line with market trends right now for a group your size. However, we weren't really satisfied with that. We went back to Cigna, and we were able to negotiate the renewal down to a 5.2% increase on the active employee component. Now, there is the retiree component, and just so everybody, I want to, just to be clear so everybody knows what I'm talking about, there's actually 2 retiree groups. There's over 65, which are on a plan with Health First, which is a Medicare supplement Advantage plan, and then what we're talking about here is under 65 retirees that are on the Cigna plan because they're not eligible for Medicare yet. So those rates are quite a bit lower than the active rate. However, because of the level where they're at and the claims they're seeing with it, those actually came up 29%. They're still less than the active rate, but most of the increase was actually in that category.
And Sean, just to add, the city is paying the entire portion of the retiree-only plan anyway. So that, all of that is the city-borne cost. The retirees, if they have a spouse on there, they pay the difference between the retiree plan and that difference there.
And just so, those were part of their employment contracts at the time that coverage be provided.
And that's the I'd say that's the older retired employees, correct?
That's
Or
correct.
is that
We don't pay for retiree health care anymore. We allow them to stay on the plan because that is law, but we do not, they pay for that.
Okay.
So,
So this was under the old, right, in the city, right?
The old way,
I
for
understand.
lack of a, yeah, but I think it's noteworthy to point out because we get, questions we get all the time is why don't we just stop this? And so I think it's important for everybody to know why that was done. So overall though, because there's a lot less retirees on the plan and their rates were lower, the overall increase for the employees that are on the plan, if they stayed in the exact same tier, the overall cost increase is 7.9%. Staff and Suzanne or Courtney can jump in here at all, but one thing we did in the process of helping with budgeting is there were 6 extra positions where we assumed people taking the health care at various levels. I think it was 4 at single and 2 at, some sort of dependent coverage, and then also a couple people being eligible in that retiree class. So that added, from a budget perspective, that added almost 10%, but that is not a rate increase, that's just a budget impact. So I just want to make sure for anybody listening that they don't think it's actually close to a 20% increase, because a lot of that is, an assumed FTE. You never know, they might have coverage with a spouse and might not take it. So I just want to clarify that. And then there's a little bit of a breakout of the total premium number here. So the majority, as you can see, obviously the fee paid to Cigna to actually run the program is really the lowest cost component. The individual stop loss is obviously the biggest fixed cost component, but most of that is claims. So $966,000, that's your max liability. So if we have $600,000 in claims next year, we would come in $360,000 under expected. So, and then the dental renewal ended up, it started off higher, but we were able to negotiate that down to a 4% increase, which dollar-wise is 4% sounds worse than the dollar. Don't remember, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me. So next section is a clinic. Offer up, anybody have any other questions on the medical, or we can take them all at the end? Okay. So the clinic, I know we spoke in April, and we kind of briefed everybody, and I know you've been getting briefed. We, originally released an RFP with City of Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor, and Cocoa Beach. There were 3 respondents to that. One of the biggest concerns, especially for the city of Cocoa Beach because of where their employees live, was whether or not the location that you all have here would actually make sense. So what we did is we actually started discussions with the city of Cocoa. They have a clinic in Forest. They have an administrator. They have a doctor who is very well loved by their employees there. And so we talked to them about the potential of tagging on with their facility. So one of the things we did as we looked at where people lived, and we think that it still makes sense, obviously, to have a location here in Satellite, but also to give employees the option to go to either and stagger some of those schedules. And we don't have a set in stone schedule, but we have a pretty good idea of how we want to stagger some of those things. And basically, I actually saw a draft of the interlocal from the City of Cocoa's attorney as we were starting earlier, so we'll hopefully have something to you shortly there on the interlocal. But essentially, a majority of the costs can be billed directly to Satellite in their respective cities based on their usage in the clinic. The biggest thing they can is really any facility costs and then costs for staffing and the providers. So those would be split based on each city's representative population. And I'll show you the percentages in a second, and then trued up once a year, but it could be more frequent depending on what everybody agrees to. So, to use in a simple example, if we had 2 cities that was 50-50, and one used 52% for the year and the other used 48, you would true up that 2% and share costs between the cities. So, location, I don't remember if we had this last time, but just so you know, Coco's facility is right near their City Hall. It's right on Lemon Street, so it's right over the bridge. Obviously, for Cocoa Beach, they're sort of in a position where they could go potentially to either. Your guys' employees, obviously, it would be more advantageous for a lot of them to use the facility here. Indian Harbor Beach, who was part of the original discussion, for the most part, we believe is probably not going to proceed this year. It's not 100% final, but it seems pretty final. However, City of Rockledge has actually expressed interest, so they're kind of jumping in and filling that, which actually creates a little bit of cost savings for the city here, especially from what we were originally looking at. So this is hard to read, but I don't know if your ones that you have are any easier, but this is all of the cities now. Indian Harbor Beach is still in these counts. This is where all of the employees and retirees that are on the health plan live for all of those cities. So as you can see, obviously there is a big concentration around the Cocoa facility, and then you probably can't see unless your eyes are better than mine, which probably wouldn't be a far stretch, but there's a pretty good amount down here in Satellite. So what we did is we actually broke things out a little bit more based on population, so you see where some of the people live. So, 63% obviously on the beaches, so.
It looks like there's a big percentage right there in Melbourne. Is that 209? Right across from Satellite Beach? A little.
I believe it is. They're actually.
That's like 10% on your other chart.
Yeah, the percentages on the chart, Suzanne, I know in Georgia, this was Satellite's population only, the percentages.
He's talking about the previous slide.
The previous slide shows like.
Yeah, so the previous slide is true numbers of all the groups. Yep. So there are a lot of people right over the bridge. That includes, that includes you all, but.
But it's not solely us. Okay.
So.
That's all of the cities.
Yeah, there's a lot of Rockledge employees that live south. So, overall, when we saw the maps and we were able to have them all combined, it's really there were a lot more than we thought on the south side and just kind of right across the bridge. So, as we saw that even led to us adding a few less hours potentially at the Cocoa facility and more here, because we think more people would actually come to this location. So this is actually sort of hot off the presses. I'll tell you, there's a few things that may be tweaked because there's, Suzanne, am I right up here? Yeah. So there's about 4 feet of, I believe it's basically a wall that, in order to try and keep costs down, we're going to try and play with essentially 4 feet so we don't have to get into any structural issues, and I don't know if you want to.
It's a weight-bearing wall, so we don't want to have to get a structural engineer and redo all that. So we may lose 4 feet on the south, or the south, on the bottom of the.
Yeah, so it would really just come to the lobby. The nice thing about these centers is you really don't need much of a waiting room, because the goal is people are.
I met with the structural engineer today and looked at both those areas that we were concerned about, and it may be doable, so he's going to get back with us. I saw an email from David as I was checking my emails earlier, so tomorrow I'll get back with you and let you know.
Okay, so it is a draft, though, just to let you know, and that's not set in stone. We just want to make sure the community understands that we may change that, we may not, so.
Yep. But, so in this scenario, we would have 2 exam rooms and then kind of a triage room behind the nurse's station where the medicine will be held, and then we'll have a lab on the other side. That lab will typically have a pass-through built in to the restroom so that if somebody has to do a urine sample, they can just open up the little door, put it in there. So that's floor plan. We wanted you to see that. So on here, what we have is we have proposed costs for all 4 cities. We left the column for Indian Harbor on there, but we actually removed their information. So taking a look, if you take a look under satellite, you'll see that expected recurring costs, assuming everybody does the annual health assessment and you had your own health assessment event, which more than likely they would be shared and it would reduce some of that cost. The expected recurring cost is about $80,000 for the city. And then the one-time build-out cost, so we still had in here an estimate of $100,000 for the facility, which I think, everybody's initial glance is that that's probably on the high side, so we think it would come in lower. And then other startup costs for the facility, things like tables, exam rooms, all that. The split for the city would be about $24,000. So, about $104,000, which would ultimately have about 48 hours of clinic provider time between the 2 locations. Where originally we were looking at, I don't remember the city's exact cost under the original proposal. It was well over 100.
It was well over that.
It was definitely over 100. It was closer, probably, I think, to 150 on a recurring basis. So now for almost half the price, we're able to have access to 2 locations and double the amount of provider time. And the biggest thing with doing clinics that we've noticed, we have about 20 clients that are operating them across the state, is having that easy access to time. If it's only open 2 days a week, chances of people are adopting it are a lot less lower than a 5-day-a-week clinic. So
when we do this, and providing that this all works this way, down the road, Indian Harbor, possibly Indian Atlantic, they look at what's going on and recognize the benefits. If they want to get in, we're still going to be able to accommodate.
Yeah, we would be presenting, should council give us direction to move forward, we will come back to you prior to the end of August. That's the goal of all the cities, to enter into an interlocal agreement. And any city thereafter can certainly enter into that agreement and share into the cost.
They would share into the build-out cost too, if you're going to bring more people in at a later date, and not saying, but let's just say because Indian Harbor is right there, you get it built out and then they want to come in, are they prorated for that build-out cost?
We can talk about that. For example, we're not prorating into COCOs, but we're still able to access that clinic. Right. So that would just have to be negotiated.
Yeah, what I will tell you, most facilities have done, if somebody joins late, they do ask to recoup some of the costs. With what you guys are doing and what COCO's already done, what we felt was really the easiest way to do it was COCO's not going to try and recoup anything from you guys for theirs, and you guys, essentially the 3 of you, just split up and pay for your facility, and then anybody else that comes on,
yeah. Real well. When I bring in 2 more cities 6 months from now, and I don't, then that's a pretty good deal. Let's wait till you get all the work done, and then we'll jump in. So, proportionate, the more the better, and I think it's great, but I just want to make sure we're covered and the other people.
Yep.
Yeah, if we added anyone, it would still come back to you, because everybody would have to agree to that. So.
And the one other thing, other than let's talk recurring costs, similar to your self-funded plan, one thing I'll point out is really your guaranteed cost is the 22 and the 33. Everything else down there is based on usage estimates. So, we're going to obviously recommend budgeting the 80, but if it's used less one year and more the other year, obviously that fluctuates a little bit, similar to claims in a self-funded plan. And because of that, that's really one of the biggest reasons that a clinic is easy for cities to jointly do, where trying to jointly blend your health plan is, quite frankly, a disaster. So, with that, I want to, overall, we have the recommendations here. As far as the clinic, City of Cocoa, and as I said, I actually got it as we were sitting in here. The interlocal, their attorney put some finishing touches on that. Of course, obviously, everybody else's attorneys are gonna read that. The other things that would be involved, Cary TC, a couple of the cities have already actually signed it, was asking for just a letter of intent. It's not really a binding letter of intent, they just wanted something on paper before they start, they've already had their construction people do the drawings, obviously, so they were asking for that. And then eventually, as we do move forward, as everything's ready in the interlocal, if it's agreeable to everybody, it would be a piggyback off the City of Cocoa's contract with Cary TC. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Council, questions? Mark?
I'd just like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to accept the insurance plan renewal as quoted and to sign a letter of intent with Cary ATC for an employee health clinic.
Second. I have a motion by Councilman Montanaro, second by Councilman Osmer. Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll open it up to the floor for agenda item 10, discussion, take action on the health care insurance renewal. Floor is open.
Start my timer, please.
No comment.
I can't hear the timer when it goes off.
That's all right.
All right, we'll let you know.
I'll let you know. I'll take
Thank
off
you.
when it's time.
Don McClendon, citizen. 1 out of 10 Americans cannot afford health care. There's a projected total of 61 city participants who currently pay nothing in premiums, and now you're considering further providing them with their family participants with free no-deductible doctor visits, an annual health assessment, labs, inoculations, and medications at a city health care clinic. The average American's prescription drug cost for the years 2013 and 2014 was $1,370. This is according to Express Scripts, the nation's largest pharmacy benefit manager. The total out-of-pocket expense for those that were insured was $185. The total prescription claims submitted to Cigna, the city's health care provider, in the fourth quarter of 2015 was approximately $35,000. So if we extrapolate that out, granted, it may be a little less because this was the last quarter, so the previous 3 quarters. If you extrapolate that, you're talking $140,000 a year or $1,538 a month. And this figure is well above national average and is 10 times the amount projected in the clinic partnership proposal under the Supplies RX estimate. Not everyone is equal, of course, and there are specialty medications such as cancer drugs, Hep C drugs, MS medication, and inflammatory focused drugs are putting enormous stresses on benefit plans and providers. Is the city prepared to go into the benefits business when some of the largest plans in the country are struggling to make ends meet? More to the point, are the taxpayers willing to foot this new expenditure all the while struggling to pay their own bills? I find it hard to fathom that the city believes that they can dispense medications cheaper than the nation's largest prescription provider. Research suggests about 60% of the highest spending members are retirees. We just saw that up here. Roughly 60% of those are also taking a minimum of 10 different prescription drugs. There are 17 retirees that participate in the plan. This select group of retirees pays zero in insurance premium. Now the city is suggesting that we pick up their entire prescription drug cost and general health care visits. The current city plan provides vision and dental benefit at no cost for employees and retirees and at a minimal cost for their dependents and children, spouse. Police and fire department personnel will also be able to utilize this clinic. But there has been no discussions to offset this new benefit in their respective collective bargaining agreements. The city's renewal cost for 99 participants, just figures we saw of 91 is wrong, is anticipated to exceed $1.4 million for the 2016-2017 fiscal year. All right, I've got one short paragraph, if you don't mind, please. The clinic partnership proposal is already out of date, being provided due to an increase of 8 participants. The total reoccurring cost is closer to $95,000, an amount that could handily pay down the newly issued utility tax debt. I recommend that you step back, get hard numbers, and reassess, giving thought to hiring a pharmacy benefit manager and perhaps increasing maximum out-of-pocket expenses. Thanks. Be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Okay. So, a couple things I'll address. The first thing on the pharmacy, with regards to the fact, that the city's plan is already covering it, and that is really what I would say is you're already paying for this. So we're not in a situation where we're obviously just going to stop paying for people's medications. So what we're trying to do in that process is move it to a lower cost alternative. There's two real ways we can achieve that. One, obviously, is through better engagement with the physician to try and get someone potentially off the brand name drugs to the lower cost drugs. We face a lot of the challenges that were mentioned. MS drugs, there's no MS drug out there that's less than $50,000 a year. There's prescriptions coming out left and right that are $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. However, a point was made, can the city, through this clinic, actually dispense drugs cheaper than Express Scripts? A couple of points on that I would point out. The first thing is, other than a few exceptions maybe for antibiotics, none of the medications that are going to be stocked in the clinic will be stocked if the price point is higher than on the Cigna plan. So if the better deal is the Cigna plan for a medication, then it's not going to be stocked in the clinic. So we're only going to have medications stocked in the clinic that are offered at a lower price to the city than the plan. So that's part of how the savings are being driven. One thing that a lot of the articles obviously won't mention, especially if it's being written by a PBM, is the pharmacy has a cut, the PBM takes a cut. So all these individuals are taking cuts off a drug. What CareATC is doing as the clinic provider, and they operate over 100 clinics across the country, is they're going and negotiating direct contracts for those pre-filled medications. There's no dispensing fee, there's no markup, there's no profit, there's none of those things. So because of that, if the city themselves were just to go buy drugs, could they do it at a lower price? No, but CareATC with that purchasing power can. So, I think that's important. As far as the 91 and the 99, because with the health insurance from a prudent budgeting point of view, we're obviously adding assumed FTEs in there that they may take insurance. But for the clinic proposal, it's not going to be billed based on budgeted position. It's going to be billed based on actual people using the clinic. So 91 is what you have right now. 91 is what, if you went into the clinic today, that agreement would be based off of. So, I'll point that out. As far as, a comment about making it free and, questioning why we're doing this, I think the biggest thing is the city, the taxpayers, you're paying for the employees to have this benefit now. So we're not looking at just trying to add another benefit for benefit's sake. What we're ultimately trying to do for the long term is look at shifting costs out of the medical plan to the health center to try and control costs over the long term. So that's the ultimate goal of the clinic.
Didn't you have a average cost for a visit to the clinic compared to the average cost of a visit to a typical general physician provider? Do we have that information?
We do have some, so it varies a little bit, but on average, if we get the utilization, remember the clinic, anything under Cigna is fee for service. I go to the doctor, however many things they can tack on to my visit, either I get charged or my insurance company gets charged for that. So obviously the clinic average, but it is driven by utilization. But if utilization is where we would like it to be, we typically see a cost around the $100 to $120 range. But what I would point out with that is that includes both labs that are typically associated with that visit, and also the medication itself. Where on average in the system right now, we see about $145 to $150 average cost of a visit after the employee's copay. So it's actually a little bit higher. And specialist visits, typically we see in the mid $200 range at the end of the day. The one thing I'll say is, people say, well, you're not going to have a specialist in the clinic. However, there are a number of people out there because of PCP shortages, primary care physicians. Nobody wants to be a PCP anymore for the most part. They want to be a specialist. That's the only way they can pay off their student loans, for medical school. So a lot of people are going to specialists and incurring those higher costs when all they really need to do is be going to a PCP. So there's a lot of savings generated in the clinic by getting that shift as well.
And so I think also the idea is, by asking employees to use the clinic, we not only save in the cost to the claims, but we're also asking employees to, we're emphasizing wellness basically. So we're getting employees that had never gone to the doctor before, and this is what happened in Titusville, who didn't take their blood pressure medication, who didn't deal with their diabetes or, almost close to having diabetes, things like that. And we're trying to control that in the beginning so we don't get the strokes, we don't get the major illnesses down the line that are huge hits to the city's plan. So it's also part of, in the public sector, we prize longevity in our employees. I mean, because history, culture, all of that matters very much in the public sector. And you can see that in the city of Satellite Beach very easily. We have long-term employees, and we want to keep that way. So part of this is making sure that we keep them, and making sure that they stay healthy, and we reduce those claims over time, particularly as they get older and they start getting close to retirement. So it's a long-term strategy. I mean, it is, and we have to look at it that way. The first year is a cost. In Titusville and in Cocoa, I think they incurred, your second year you get a savings, and after that you're really just controlling your increases. But there's those direct savings, but also the long-term indirect savings that we're trying to go after.
I went with Courtney and some of our staff members, and I think it was in February of 13 when I came back on council to Titusville and went to their clinic. And, what I'm seeing here is not so much just health insurance. It's basically a wellness program that's being brought into the city to look down the road at how we're going to control our costs, because the standard insurance is continually rising. And unless we do something to address it, and it's worked very successful up there. I mean, just seeing it, this has been one of my primary goals for us to move toward since 2013. So, I'm thrilled that we're here. I understand some of the concerns that are there, but I see this as a definite benefit to long-term savings in our city and our employees also.
Okay, the floor is still open for public comment. Here, no further.
Bring it back to council discussion.
I remember talking to Courtney a lot on this, and it's very interesting how much health care insurance goes up each year. I mean, it's staggering, and it's a huge part, it's going to be a huge part of our budget, and whatever we can do to try to minimize that increase, I think we need to take the chance on there.
And I just wanted to point out too, is, Sean with Gearing Group, they've done a great job for us over the past 3 years. Every year they come in and say, Cigna wants a 19% increase, and we say, no, we want 5, and they come back and they get us 5. And it's another year they did it again, so, we appreciate their
It's just not going to be anything that's going to be easy. I mean, I think this is just going to be a trend that's there, and however we try to start to whittle that down, I think you got to look at the future too on it. So I think the health clinic is good. Any further discussion? Lenore?
Vice Mayor Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 11, discuss, take action, result of a request for bids for the tennis court relighting.
We're requesting the approval of award for bid number 151605 for tennis court relighting to Boys Electric Contractors LLC with the total project cost not to exceed $28,041.23. And this will be coming from the Capital Assets Fund, and this is basically maintaining our tennis courts lighting systems.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Breimer, second by Councilman Montanaro. Courtney, this was in our budget for this year's capital asset plan. Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion from council? Hearing none, open up for public comment, agenda item 11. Hearing none. Back to council, Lenore.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breimer?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Moving on
He's all
to,
ready to talk.
I know, I'm just trying to move things along. Thank you.
She's been practicing all day.
Al, don't sit down too much there.
I'm going to move this one along too, okay?
Discuss, take act, I'm going on to agenda item 12, discuss, take action, results of request for bid for the Shell Street Bollard.
Thank you. We're requesting the approval and award for bid number 151606 Shell Street Bollards to Gray Bar Electric Company, Inc., with the total project cost of $39,840, and this will be coming from the Community Redevelopment Trust Fund. And that's pretty much it. This is for Shell Street. You've all requested the bollard lighting, gave us direction to go get a bid on that, and here we are with the results.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Montanaro, second by Vice Mayor Breimer, and this is coming out of the CRA funds, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. At this time, open up for public comment.
Joanne Regan, resident. I didn't see anything on the bid about installation.
It's in there, I think.
The installation will be done by Public Works. They're actually pretty easy. You auger a base into the ground, and then you bolt the light to the base, and you walk away. There's solar, so there's really no electric or anything like that involved.
Thank you. Further discussion? Nope. Thank you. Public comment still open? And then back to council. No further discussion. Lenore?
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Moving on to agenda item 13, discuss and take action on agreement with SidServ and ETS Corp. for municipal community development software services.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an odd one, and so we'd just like to apologize in advance for this one. On December 8th, 2014, we issued a request for proposals from qualified vendors for basically the building permit software, community development software for code enforcement, BTRs, and building permits. And on February 18th, we came back to you and said, you know, this is the company we recommend, CitizenServe. Unfortunately, after that, we did not bring back the agreement. We simply signed the agreement and moved on, and what we should have done was brought that back to you. We noticed that error when we went to go forward with the ETS agreement through Merit Bank. So what we're asking you to do is come back and ratify the agreement with CitizenServe and authorize me to sign the ETS merchant application and agreement and basically ratify the previous action. So we apologize for that mistake. We basically, we definitely have to rectify that. And as a positive, on July 25th, the BTRs will go live on the web, so people will be able to file their BTRs online. And then on August 1st, the building permits will be live online, so people will be able to file their building permits online.
Perfect.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councilman Montanaro, second by Vice Mayor Breimer. Any discussion from council?
This is a great program. It's going to work great.
This time open up for public comment. Hearing none, bring it back to council. Any discussion? Lenore?
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, staff. Moving on to agenda item 14, discuss, take action on ordinance 1120. Jim?
Ordinance number 1120, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, amending the retirement plan and trust for the police officers and firefighters of the City of Satellite Beach, providing for severability clause, providing an effective date, providing for codification, the second reading of ordinance number 1120.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1120 on second reading.
Motion by Councilman Osmer, second by Vice Mayor Breimer. Discussion from council? Hearing none, open up for public comment. Hearing none, back to council. Any further discussion? This is the second reading. Lenore?
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 15, discuss, take action on ordinance 1122.
Ordinance number 1122, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, calling a referendum election on proposed amendments to the city charter related to limited editing of existing provisions, city council and staff functions, filling city council vacancies, combining functions of planning advisory boards, and reinstating majority vote for revenue increases, establish a referendum date, and providing an effective date. It's the second reading of ordinance number 1122.
I move to adopt ordinance 1122 on the second reading.
Motion by Councilman Osmer, second by Vice Mayor Breimer. With the changes in yellow?
Yes.
There's been some changes. Is that
Yes.
added to it and to the second?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, open up for public comment on agenda item 15. The floor is open.
Don McClendon, citizen. I got a little blindsided on that, came up pretty quick. One of these amendments, referendum is to,
This November?
yes,
Yes.
is to go back to a simple majority rather than a simple majority on any revenue increases. Is that correct? Now, one of the council members, not here now, she mentioned earlier, we want to have a referendum and the citizens wanted something and then take it back away from them again. So now, this is exactly what we're going to do. Now, when this referendum was passed, I think in 2012, when we went to a supermajority, that passed by, I think, over 10% of the vote. And if you looked at just the simple election of councilman and mayor, there was never over a 2 or 3% difference. So the citizens felt very strong about that. And I'm just curious as to why, we would even be moving back to a simple majority from a supermajority. The county has a supermajority. We have a supermajority. Citizens wanted a supermajority. You guys have done perfectly fine raising taxes for the last 2 years without any problem. So is there a fear here that we're going to, maybe two people that aren't like-minded? I mean, if the citizens elect, if they elect 5 people for this dais up here, we should, if 2 people or 1 person has a dissenting vote, that's got to be respected. So I'm not sure why we're going in this direction. It just totally boggles my mind. I mean, we're dealing with taxes. Excuse me?
Yeah, we'll answer it if that's one of you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong here. Some of this is because by law, some of the things we have aren't consistent with state law?
No, if I remember correctly, the issue on this has to do with, there's a question whether or not the law prohibits a supermajority, and the idea is that rather than have that issue pending, that the Charter Review Committee evaluated it, and they came up with several reasons as to why they wanted to present the council to go back to the majority. It was they came out of the Charter Review Committee, but one of them had to do with the issue about the question of law, and I think the other one was they just thought it should just be a majority vote rather than a supermajority vote. That was.
They felt that the the minority would be controlling the majority. That's how they felt about the supermajority. So that was their primary reason. The issue about the question of law was a secondary issue, but their primary reason was that they felt by having a supermajority that the minority could prevent and control the services provided to the residents by the council.
And again, we formed a committee, and that committee gave these recommendations, and there's also other recommendations they gave that we didn't have answers to how ties were broken and so forth. So that's why it's going back to the public to vote on. We have charter review committees every so many years. We put one together, and this was their recommendation. We looked at it and let the people decide whether they want to do here. It goes for vote to our citizens in November, so they can vote however they want to at that time.
The basic feeling of the Charter Review Committee was that if there were needs in the city that needed to be done, that residents expected, then a minority was controlling the council and making decisions on what needs of the city were met. And that didn't hold favor with them. So they brought it to us, and
we're just going to let the
citizens vote on it.
We haven't.
I just wanted to point out to you before you go into a vote that the ordinance changes are highlighted in yellow, but also the charter language changes since your last meeting are also highlighted in yellow. So I wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Floor public comment still open, please.
The explanation given in the agenda packet for, I'm sorry, Joanne Regan, resident, given for referendum 5 states the only reason on here is Florida statute 195.20 that a municipal charter no municipal charter may prohibit or limit the authority of a governing body to levy ad valorem taxes or utility service taxes. Is that not the reason? Is that not?
That was
one of
a secondary reason.
Right, but I mean, if Florida statute prohibits it, why is there a question?
I think there's a question of whether the question was, what was the reasoning behind but the Charter Review Committee, their primary issue was the rationale behind their concern
right,
with
but
that.
Regardless of what their interpretation is, if the Florida statute says you can't do it.
There's a question about whether or not that violates that statute, and the issue was.
And that hasn't been heard by a court.
That's correct.
Still open? Hearing none, bring it back to council. Any further discussion? Lenore?
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, and it will be on the ballot, and that way our citizens have the ability to vote. Some of those changes we had to do because they were not in our bylaws. Moving on to agenda item 16. Are the proposed meeting agenda for our August 3rd meeting. If you have any additions, as we've said in the past, please see Courtney. If you'd like to have anything added. Moving on to, is there any other discussion on the agenda? Nope. Okay. Moving on to agenda item 17, the adoption of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the City Council regular meeting minutes of July 6, 2016 as submitted.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Montanaro, second by Councilman Osmer. Is there any further discussion?
I would just like, I don't know if the record will show that Councilwoman Gott was not present for the rest of the meeting after item number whatever it was.
I think it'll reflect in the vote.
Okay.
It wasn't taken.
Any further discussion?
I just want to remind council you have a special meeting on the 28th. We'll be presenting the budget. There's your budget.
Thank you.
Passed out.
You have to roll call.
Oh, sorry.
Right, we're not done.
Oh, okay.
Okay, no problem. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, Lenore?
Vice Mayor Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Any further business before this council? Staff, thank you very much. Citizens, thank you for coming. Meeting's adjourned.